Hello and welcome to the Happy Cells and Souls YouTube channel. I am Julie Powers and I am a licensed Zumba instructor and a business partner with the Juice Plus company. And while I believe that life is better when you're dancing through it, and I am on a mission to inspire healthy living around the world, my expanded mission is to create better health at the cellular level and more joy at the cellular level. And I believe that we are supposed to take care of our bodies because they're the only place we get to live the whole time we're here on earth. And I believe that we're supposed to be filled up with light and love and joy so that we can share that with the world. And I've had in my life some amazing relationships with people. And I believe that every single person I've come in contact with has given me an opportunity to learn something. And so I want to pass along through these conversations on YouTube some of those people that I've gotten to meet along the way. And one of those people is Aundria Kirchhoff, and she is just an amazing individual. And she and I work sidelines together through the Juice Plus and Tower Garden companies. And we are on the same mission to inspire healthy living around the world. But she has some really cool experience in her life as not only the business owner of Grow Hope Farms in Lincoln, Nebraska, but seedling grower and horticulture instructor and all kinds of things about farming and gardening and working with amazing projects. And so I want her to explain to us today the difference between horticulture therapy and therapeutic horticulture, and how using these types of therapies and therapeutic things are bringing empowerment to people and allowing us to be more in control of things that wouldn't necessarily be in our control. So, Aundria, would you like to just share a little bit about your background and walk us through the story?
Okay, thank you so much for having me along today. I am thrilled to be able to share my story and to just be a part of this amazing group and this community that you're creating. It is something I don't take lightly, and the blessing of being able to be asked. So thank you very much, Julie. I am a small town girl. I grew up on 9 acres in South Central Nebraska and grew up with 4-H, FFA, and just like a small, like a really idyllic life, honestly. And it was beautiful. We had all the animals and we grew our own vegetables and life was really good. My parents were teachers and they also had a greenhouse business. So in high school, it's pretty funny. In high school, I swore I would never teach and I would never work with plants in my entire life. Well, as fate would have it,
right?
I love it because my last real job before I became a business owner was actually teaching horticulture, because I went on to get my undergrad degree and I did some graduate work, both in the field of horticulture. So it's pretty funny because so I tell people never say never, right? Well, that story, fast forward a lot of years of a lot of different industry, working in the industry of horticulture in different arenas, brought me to actually being a mom at home. And we'd had 2 babies. Neither one of us was raising the babies because we were super busy and both had careers, and we knew that didn't line up with our value system. And so we decided that my husband would take a lateral move, a different job in his company. And then we had a 3rd baby. So we cut our expense. I mean, we added our expenses and we cut our income down. So we were not on the right measure. And that's when I was actually introduced to the Juice Plus company. So it made a lot of sense to me because it's very simply fruits and vegetables in a capsule. And honestly, we were having a little bit of a health crisis, very minor, but I was at my wit's end as a mama, right? And so I'd stepped away from horticulture, but all of those years, I've been in this Juice Plus business for a while, and all of the years I had just missed working with plants. That's what I believe God created me to do. And so in 2012, the Juice Plus company actually partnered with a gentleman named Tim Blank, and they have introduced a tower garden, which is an aeroponic, meaning growing without soil, similar to hydroponic, but just a little different, an aeroponic growing system that's a vertical system. So we help people learn how to garden. And so then the passion that I'd always had for plants then was reborn, and I've been able to really thrive for my own personal, well-being, and then also to help others working within that arena more and more every day. And it has taken me to places I never expected. So that is kind of my little nutshell version of how I came to where I am. And I'm so excited to share with you today what we're actually doing, both on our own farm, our own Tower Garden farm, as well as helping other people and working with schools, etc. So I'm pretty excited.
Yeah. Well, okay. So what I hear in that is that you grew up in dirt farming, dirt gardening,
Absolutely.
and you still have a tie to that, and it's very much a part of your soul, but that you were handed a different option that is easy and it's available to anyone and everyone. You don't have to be a farmer that likes to dig in the dirt, which is my thing. I don't like to dig in the dirt. I'm not a dirt girl, and I don't like bugs and critters that you find in the
Right.
dirt. I don't like weeds and things like that. So, but I love being able to grow my own food. And so, we were talking about before we hit the record button that you work with something called horticulture therapy.
Yes.
Which is a very structured therapy, not like aromatherapy and light therapy and, things like that, but it's actual horticulture therapy. So I'd like for you to explain what that means and how that
Okay.
works. And then I'd like for us to talk about the therapeutic horticulture and how it can be dirt or aeroponic or whatever, but the projects that you have been working with very closely in the last few years have been more with the aeroponic vertical growing. So yeah. Tell us about what is horticulture therapy.
Horticulture. Okay, so that is a great question. And you know what? So many people struggle. I used to say I was a horticulturalist. People cannot say that word. So now I say I'm a horticulture specialist. Because if you put just that one more suffix or ending on that verb, on that word, it is difficult. So horticulture therapy really is, in very simple terms, it is a type of therapy, a goal-based therapy that is inspired by nature. So I tell people it is working with a specific population. So let's just say the geriatric population on a desired outcome. So what goals do we have for that population on a desired outcome with a therapist that helps that happen. And in doing that, we're using gardening type activities or working with plants in some capacity. So in that example, working with a geriatric population, we may be in an assisted living facility, and we just want, the goal is for them to come out of their rooms for socialization, because they many times go from a farm or a setting where they've nurtured people and families, and they get into kind of a sterile setting, right? And so just getting them out of their rooms is a huge part of their wellness. And so a therapist that is working with them may have a gardening class once a week, and they may have they might plant seeds and then nurture those seeds and then eventually plant them outside in the garden. With a tower garden, we can do all kinds of basically the same thing, but all kinds of different options with that as well. So one of my favorites with that population is remembrance therapy. So we use horticultural activities. Again, it is specific horticulture activity that we're using with a therapist. And remembrance therapy, though, is we work on all of their senses, right? So it's tasting, touching, seeing, smelling. And if you put something like a peony or some of those old-fashioned type plants, think about grandma's rose garden, right? When you put those in front of really any population, but specifically those that are coming back that we haven't seen, and sometimes people are audible and auditory learning. I mean, they're hearing things they haven't been able to hear, and then they're also responding. So I'm really excited about what we can do with horticulture therapy. But again, it's a specific desired outcome that we're looking at.
Well, and I like whenever we were talking before, just the simple example of physical therapy using those little balls that you have to squeeze to get
right.
strength back and get your hands to be stronger versus using a pruner and harvesting food.
Yeah,
And it's a much more enjoyable experience to go, clip, clip, clip and be harvesting food than it is to sit there and squeeze a ball. So I
exactly.
love that. And so I totally understand what you're saying. There's so many things that can be included in that. But let's say that we're not in therapy right now, and we're not in a nursing home or assisted living kind of environment or whatever, and we're just average people living in our homes, wanting to be more connected to gardening or
Mhm.
nature. And so, what would you say then is the biggest piece of that puzzle for using this as therapeutic horticulture? All of those
Right.
things I think still apply, what you just
Yep.
said, but it's not in a structured, formal modality outcome environment.
Exactly, exactly. So there is a premise called biophilia, and it basically means that we as humans have an affinity for nature, in the simplest terms. And I think that there is so much of our society that has gotten so busy and crazy and stressed, and we are running all the time that we've sort of removed ourselves from the natural world. And so in a changing world, when we have the opportunity to determine and design our lives, to simply think about how to reconnect with nature. That might mean taking your shoes off and walking through the grass in your own yard or at the park, watching out for where dogs have been, of course, right? It might mean taking your dog for a walk. It might mean just buying a house plant or buying something that you can nurture. So there are studies that actually show that even people with a view of a landscape are healthier than people with a view of, nothing, more man-made bricks and mortar type of thing.
Right.
And so I think for each of us, as we look at our own wellness, I think it's so important that we step back and we think about, how are we being intentional with our wellness? How are we designing what we are doing on a daily basis to include some of the natural world and or working in some capacity with plants? It's all therapeutic. It's just not, like you said, in a specific desired outcome type of a setting.
Right.
And though for each of us, don't we all have our own wellness goals? Or maybe we should. If we don't, we want to take a look at, how can I be the healthiest me? How can I be the best mom, the best wife, the best daughter? And I think all of those things are interconnected, because when we go, and I keep looking that direction because that's my window to the world, right? In my office here, and how can we go out to the world and reconnect with nature? It doesn't mean that you have to be a tree hugger, a hippie, or any of the other, technical, like not technical terms, but fun terms that we have. It just means that you stop and take a deep breath, that
Right.
you appreciate the sunset, that you touch the leaves of the plants around you.
And you
um
smell them, and you smell them. You
Smell
hold
them.
those leaves and you rub them and you smell that,
Right,
and it's so
right.
fresh.
Absolutely. So really, for therapy to happen in the natural world, you just need to be present and mindful when you go out there. Instead of chasing the kids nonstop, let the kids run, they'll be fine, and just be present in that moment. I think that is a huge piece. And then, of course, when you're taking more specific goals and specific steps, I personally love our tower gardens, because I have a garden right here in my office, and I have celery and kale and parsley and basil and chives. I'm looking at it right now, and thyme, and these plants that when I come into my office, there's a newness, there's oxygen, first of all, that we wouldn't have in here otherwise, but the smell and the freshness that we get is really important. And I think that as we parent our next generation, as we as a society look at the screenagers or the millennials, whatever you want to call them,
Teenagers. Oh,
the
I love that
I
term.
well, literally, those kids have, I mean, I have teenagers,
Yeah,
and they have never known life without a screen in front
right,
of them.
right.
And
But
that's not their
fortunately
fault.
for your children, they've been involved with nature a lot. And we talked about going out into nature, but with the tower garden, you are empowered to bring nature in to you.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
you have one right there at your desk, right across from you. I have one in my garage right now. And for people who live in a place where they don't have an outdoor area at all, they have a
Yeah.
balcony or a porch, or they might even not even have that, living in a high
Right.
rise or in a city with all concrete around them. This is a way that you can have that living thing right in front of you and be
Absolutely.
able to actually eat what you grow. I mean, it's not just a house plant, which
Yep.
is great. It's good to have house plants. They're good for, carbon dioxide and oxygen and all that. But we want to be able to actually eat what we grow if we can. So
Right.
I would love for you to take just a few minutes to tell us about some of the projects that you've been able to work with, because it's so far reaching. It's not just about every family in the United States and around the world now who have access to something like this high tech, simple aeroponic garden,
Yeah.
but it's using it in amazing ways with these different groups. So tell us about that.
Okay, so first, I work with more than 50 schools right here in my own home state of Nebraska, but lots more schools outside of Nebraska as well. And we're able to work with students, whether those be high school students, all the way down to our little people, right? And it's so much fun to see kids becoming consumers. Because I'm sorry, producers, because they live in a consumer-based world, right? We teach, go buy whatever you need and throw it away if it's not doing what it needs to do. To watch a child plant a seed and nurture that seed and to then see them be able to eat what they have grown, the world is awakened to those kids, right? And the
Right.
world is literally at their fingertips when we teach them and empower them. So working with the schools has been really fun for me. I love going. My favorite piece that we have done a lot, we have a lot of schools that we work with that kindergarten through 12th grade are all in one building or very, very close, right? Because these are small towns.
Right.
And so we have our high school students that take the tower garden, and the tower might live in the let's just say kindergarten room, but those high school students are responsible for taking care of it so that the
Ah,
teacher
right.
doesn't have one more thing to do, because goodness knows we know our teachers in our world today have their hands full, right? And
Exactly.
so we let that be the responsibility of the high school students. So there's a whole bunch of things we're teaching the kids, right? The high schoolers, about responsibility and just in general, working with another group. They have to work with adults, they get to work with kids. So there's a lot of benefits for the high schooler. And then the little people get to plant the plants, and they get to have these friends that come visit them once a week. The high schoolers check on the tower, make sure it's got the water that it needs, and just a few of the maintenance pieces. But then the best thing that I have seen is my teachers have called me and said, you wouldn't believe it, at the basketball game last week, the kindergartners were climbing up into the high school student section and giving their people hugs, right? So
Ah,
like the social outcome of that, and the high schoolers didn't mind it. That was even better, right? So
good. That's
the,
good.
the,
Yes.
the social interaction that comes from having plants as a part of your world is fantastic. So that's just one simple thing
Well,
that I
and
have seen.
too, I know that through the Juice Plus Company and Tower Garden, we offer curriculum for
Hmm.
schools to use for different grade levels, but it incorporates what? Math, science, art, so many things that they can
Yeah.
put into play. So it looks like we have just a minute or two.
Yep.
And I know that you've been working on a project with the homeless. Can
Yes, that's
you
the
just
final piece I want
tell?
to share.
Yeah.
So I'm so blessed that my brother-in-law is actually a pastor at a homeless shelter in Alabama. And they started with a small farm of about 12 tower gardens. And they put those in a couple of years ago. And because his heart was that he didn't want to just give the homeless that their community was serving just calories through the non-perishable foods, but he wanted to give them quality food. And he wanted, because he knows the importance of good quality nutrition. And the more healthful foods that we get, the more we're actually helping people, right? Because some
Right.
foods, honestly, we know just make us sick. And so they began with that. Well, that turned into a very large project because their local hospital has asked them to put in a farm that would feed everyone in the hospital. So that hospital said, we love what you're doing to feed the homeless, but how about we take it another step further? Let's give those homeless people jobs, and let's let them become farmers so that they can help feed our sick people and we have healthier food.
What
Right.
an amazing partnership. And the fact that the hospital saw this as an opportunity to invest in the community and create jobs and health at the same time.
Right.
And,
Right.
and I think in our changing world that is changing at a faster pace every day, and some uncertainty in many areas of,
Right.
food, supply chain, and just the global economy, wouldn't it be great if we could all invest in our local communities in the food sourcing, whether it's in your own home or through a group like that? What
Right.
an amazing opportunity. So
Yep.
really very cool. And, I think that we all have so many opportunities to change the world. And I keep telling people that I am the ripple effect and you are the
Yes.
ripple effect. And we can just be that tiny little pebble that gets thrown into this giant body of water. And the ripples can be so far reaching. And so you have had the opportunity to reach so many people in communities that you've never even met these people, but you've
Right.
changed lives. And that's one of the great things about what we get to do in our work environment, right? Is we get to change lives. We get to change cells at the DNA level.
Yep.
We get to make them healthier through better nutrition, and we get to change so many other things by helping them grow their own food. So
Yes.
I appreciate you so much. And if you have any final words.
I just want to say amen to all of those things that you just said. For me to have the privilege, I literally feel that it is a privilege that I have been selected to do this work. And I'm honored to give it my all, really, because, oh my goodness, we have so many people in such great need in our society. And whether you're called to feed the hungry or, to work with people with mental illness, it doesn't matter. I just want to encourage anyone that watches this to just own their own story and take a step back, maybe get into nature, do some deep breathing, and then ask, where am I supposed to put my resources? Because I think we each have the largest ability in the world, especially in our society today, to really create an impact. And that for me is what it's really all about.
Right. And we get to have that choice of
Mm-hmm.
give a man a fish and he eats for a day, teach a man how to fish and he eats for a lifetime. And that's literally what you're doing. So
Yeah.
starting from the tiniest little children. So
Yes.
thank you for all you do, Aundria. And we will just close out this conversation.
Okay. Thanks.